Other than the Philips monitor, which had a built-in e-ink screen, there hasn't been many 13.3 inches released in nearly half a year when the Onyx Tab X came out. And before that, in October of 2022 with the Dasung A4, but that was just using 6-year-old technology at this point. Moving back to over a year ago with the Bigme X6 released in March. Look, this isn't a historical piece, but you can catch our drift. 13.3s are nearly non-existent nowadays. So you can believe us when we say, this is a breath of fresh air, that this has graced our presence. The Hanvon N10 Max. This is an exemplary unit. 13.3 inch, stylus, touchscreen, Android, 128 gigs onboard storage, and it's all in English. You also get a 4000 mAh battery and everything you would want on board in terms of hardware like speakers, microphone, and even a little back button on the front. It all seems so perfect. Well, it's not. And we are going to cover the downsides and the upsides, so stick around. First thing we gotta get into before we get into the actual unit itself is the pen. I both love and hate this pen at the exact same time, and I'll tell you why. It's a great pen, there's nothing wrong with it, it feels great, it looks great, it has a lapel clip, it has an eraser, and the tip is adequate. But it's not Wacom, it's just simple electromagnetic, and it is proprietary. What that means is we're not advocating for Wacom, it's just that Wacom is king. If you have Wacom, you have choices like these. Countless pens you can use from multiple manufacturers across multiple platforms. If you have the Hanvon, you only have this one pen. If you lose this pen, you have to buy that pen again. You do have the ability to use your fingertip, it does have capacitive, but that's not the point. The point is you can't take notes, you can't do anything pen related or stylus related without precisely this pen, so it's a little bit of a concern, and it doesn't snap to the side anywhere because it's not magnetic. So although it's not incredibly expensive, you have to care for it pretty extremely. So the unit is gorgeous. I love this UI. Look at it. It's so nice and it just fits so well, and they've spaced out the margins. I like how they've gone away from kind of the cookie cutter side thing that just every manufacturer does now, and it's just so well laid out. There's almost these little groups or cards, as you can call them. You have a drop down with all of your information here. Unfortunately, you can't control the speed modes on the home screen. It doesn't work. It only works on third-party apps. So when you're watching things on YouTube and using Firefox and Chrome and stuff like that, you can use the speed mode, and we will show you that, but you can't actually speed up the unit itself in its inherent mode. It only works on third party. So that being said, let's get into it. You have notes, memo, bookcase, installed apps, etc. We are going to go to the installed apps just to show you. You have Moon Plus Reader, we have Firefox that we put in there, so you can sideload in your own APKs, and even says install APK. We first have to look at some books because that is the most important thing about ebook readers and e-ink screens is the e-reading experience. Just as an example, we'll leave the contrast at 13, and we do have bleaching as well, which changes both the background color and the icon color. You can move those left and right. You can even do text enhancement as well, so lots of things you can do there. We'll go to accelerate refresh just to speed it up just a little bit. So you can see it is quite fast. There's really no quarrels with it whatsoever. It turns pages pretty quickly, I would say, for a 13.3. There's not really any issues. If you long press on something, you get a bunch of things, copy, highlight, note, dictionary, etc. Now, it is all going to come down to the application you're using. If you're using Aldeco, if you're using Kindle, if you're using Barnes & Noble, and why we're using this is because the stock reader app is not in English for some reason. Everything else is, but the stock reader app. So, unfortunately, we can't actually show that. We can, it's just all in Chinese. You can't get a good idea of what's going on. But it is going to be up to the application you're using. So if you go down here, you get all your things like contrast, rotate, you get table of contents, you can change the font, you can change the size, the brightness, the visual options, of course. If this ever looks too kind of bad for you, just change the refresh, change it back to normal. Everything looks much better as well because we are in a speed mode. And if you don't know speed modes are a critical part of e-paper devices that help accelerate the unit's performance, but it makes it look worse. So if you go into something like fast refresh, quick refresh, accelerate refresh, it's going to deteriorate the image to make the unit faster. The e-reading experience there's no problem with it whatsoever. It's just going to come down to the app. PDF is going to be the exact same concept. It will depend on what application you're using. This is the stock one. This one has some things like font contrast. You can read it back to you. We'll show you audio in a little bit. You do have search, add bookmark, etc. We also have multi-window mode is fantastic. I am a huge advocate for multi-window mode. A lot of 13.3s do them. In fact, I think all of them do it. It is basically, it splits them into two autonomous sections, so I have the ability to use my PDF on this side and say, okay, this one has a historic home run. Alright, so home run page 4, and then I can star that, and I have all of the note-taking functionalities that I would have on the note-taking section, which we'll show you next. But I can do it while everything is split. So if I want to change my pens, I have the ability to do that. If I want to insert things like images, if I want to insert shapes, I have all that there as well. So nothing is left out. It's just scaled down. PDF experience is decent. Again, it's going to come down to the app. It is really hard for us to kind of show you PDF experiences, and why that is because every single person maybe wants to use a different application. Maybe they say, I don't like that application, I want to use Adobe and only Adobe because I can do this, that, and the other thing. So it's going to perform the way that your app is going to perform. Out of the box PDF, it's mediocre, gives you just enough to get by, but probably look for a third party. When it comes to the eNote side of things, this is great. There's a lot of features here, and we're going to go over as much as possible in this one video. You have 6 different pens: pencil, ball pen, brush, fountain, calligraphy, and marker, and each one of them has their own set of attributes. We'll show you in a second. You can do the selection tool, which we'll get over to just because I prepped it. So you can select something, you can move it around, and because this has 8 gigs of RAM, it's pretty quick for an HD mode, honestly. And we haven't scaled anything back with speed modes because you can't, because it's a first-party app. First-party apps can't utilize the speed mode. So we do have the ability to convert text as well. You can do all pages, current page, and you can do both local storage or online storage. So once you click it, it does it pretty quick, and it recognizes it the exact way you wrote it with the different lines and everything. From here, you can click share, and you can share via QR code, Evernote, email, or different applications. So it is kind of all the essentials are there for you to have a productivity tablet like so. Now, this is where it gets into some really good stuff. This is a plastic screen. I don't know how well that resonates with you guys, but basically, a lot of manufacturers don't do plastic screens. They do glass. This one, much like the Quaderno, is a plastic screen. So if I go over here and I start to write, Quaderno and Hanvon are really the only 13.3s that use plastic screens. I mean, technically the Dasung A4 does, but that's really just a Quaderno, which is just a DPT. So really these are all kind of the same thing, but Hanvon is the only outlier that actually uses a plastic screen, and I'll tell you, it feels fantastic. I gotta say, this has to be top 3 in terms of writing feel. That's a subjective thing. Some people like writing on an iPad, and they say, no, I want to write on glass. I want it to feel smooth. Totally agreeable. I get you 100%. I personally like a little bit of realism. This feels like a piece of white printer paper on a marble countertop. I got that feedback. It kind of reverberates through the pen. I get a lot of noise. I absolutely love it. It's a very high quality writing experience. Yes, that does end up carving down the tips. Tips aren't very expensive, but they are proprietary, so it's kind of a double-edged sword there. You can do pixel erasers, you can do region, trace, or you can do clear all clears everything. Now the pens is the most important part. Look at all these features. You get 6 different pens, and you can lock in 5 of them, and each one has their own attributes. So you can do fountain pen, width, and if you do marker, for example, if we go over to the marker pen, you get a ton of colors. Unfortunately, none of them show up on the screen other than shades of gray, but when you export them, they will. So if you're grading papers and underlying things, and you maybe even highlight things, you get purple and violet and aqua and chartreuse. I mean, that's going above and beyond with the color selection. Even Quaderno only gives you 2, so it's kind of nice to see that, is what we're saying. Backgrounds, you get 40 different templates throughout a bunch of different kind of categories: basic, work, learning, custom. You can add in your own, or you can just sideload in PDFs that are blank, that have music sheets and whatever you want. You can go over to Insert. Insert is very useful as well. Insert has a bunch of different shapes. It has a bunch of different lines. You can do pictures, you can do text, you can do slashes. If I want to do a triangle, you simply just write on the screen and a triangle shows up. You can make it really long, you can make it really wide, you can make it upside down. So it's really nice that some manufacturers don't even give you shapes. So this is really above and beyond work that they've given you already. OCR, they gave you a ton of different pens and they give you a lot of backgrounds. Now there is a downside to this. Again, this is not Wacom, so if this pen tip goes, you got to get these pen tips. Second thing, there's no glow light. So if you're taking these notes, there's no glow light on this device. Now there's a positive and a negative to that. It is good because it's a flatter stack of things, so it makes it look like everything is closer to the surface because there's less things in the way. In fact, this looks so close to the surface that it almost looks flat. There is a little bit of a shadow there you see between the bezel and the screen, and I haven't been able to put that out of my mind. However, compared to something like an X6, compared to something like a Tab X, where they have far more things. They have the glass, they have the Wacom layer, they have the glow light layer. There's more things in the way, whereas this one is just simply a couple things and it's a shorter stack of actual things in the way. So the EPD, the glass, the screen protector, etc. Overall, very good note-taking experience, and honestly enough to get by, and they haven't really left too many things out. Hanvon gives you a couple extra little bells and whistles to the experience out of the box, although you can install anything yourself, like a music player. It doesn't sound very good. It's a little bit crackly at the highest volume. It's alright, about 2/3 of the way there, but the speakers leave you wanting just a touch. They also give you some practice for some Chinese characters. If you're into that, you can do some different styles, pens, calligraphy, and write your Chinese characters. Hanvon gives you an app store, although there's only a couple apps and they're all in Chinese. If you find some that you might recognize, for example, Kindle, it's going to be kindle.cn and not the Kindle we all know. They give you Space Desk, so you can actually use this as a secondary monitor. And you also get the revered Hanvon books, which is just Chinese books, and a lot of them don't even have cover arts, and very unlikely you'll find anything that is not written in Chinese here, but they do have their own bookstore. It may be hard to justify a 13.3 if it's not a Onyx Books Tab X. It's hard for anyone to have a player in the game when something so all-encompassing exists. But there needs to be a wide spread, an even spread, of contenders in the market. And the Hanvon N10 is an amazing entry. Gives you a lot of features, more than some other 13.3s that exist currently. If you want to grab one of these, details are down below. Thanks for watching.